Right, there's growing concern over food global shortages as droughts and fires ravaged Russia. The Russian government extended a grain export ban, which has put pressure on food importing economies like Mozambique. This all comes as the backdrop as global and African leaders met in Accra, Ghana last week as part of the African Green Revolution Forum to find ways to create sustainable agriculture development on the continent. Sue Beukes spoke with former UN Secretary General and Chairman for the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, Kofi Annan, about why there has been such an interest in Africa's agriculture development from the private sector, multilateral organizations and governments.
First of all, I think the last food crisis, when prices shot up and some countries refused to export grain, Africans realized that we cannot continue importing what we don't grow and exporting what we grow, and that we should really get serious about producing what we eat and assure our own food security. That crisis also sent us the message that as the population grows with the demographics, we're going to need more food globally. And Africa, if it gets its act together, can feed its own population and help export to the rest of the world. And so I think governments and business, the business community, is taking keen interest in agriculture, and that is what you're seeing here at this forum. And what is also important is the optimism, the feeling that it can be done, that we have African scientists who can make a difference working with their partners abroad, that people have decided to invest in agriculture, not just in seeds or fertilizers, but all along the chain, from storage to processing to marketing. And governments are prepared to come in with the right policies, which I hope also means appropriate infrastructure to help the revolution move forward.
Just looking at some of those policies, one of the key selling points in Africa is obviously the abundance of land. Looking at land reform policies in Africa, obviously we saw the mistakes that happened in Zimbabwe. South Africa is re-looking at its land reform policies. What policies need to be, or what reforms need to be put in place by African governments, and is it in fact politically possible to do these?
I think it's possible. The governments obviously have to have clear laws on land use and land tenure. They have to have clear laws on use of land, which have not always been clear. But they are now realizing that clarity is required because it's an impediment to investments. And all around us here, whether it's Ghana, Mali, or Nigeria, you have commercial farms springing up, and they have been able to work out the land tenure issues. But it is not enough to say that one company or two have worked. There has to be a general framework, the right regulatory environment that will have clear policies on all these things to allow the transformation of agriculture. And this is why we've been stressing at this conference that yes, science can help, good seed varieties and all that, but the other half is a right government policy, right agricultural policy that clarifies the issues of land that you've raised, and is also pro-poor and pro-rural development.
And that kind of brings me to my next question in terms of how an organization like Accra manages the balance between food security as well as commercial interest from major lenders like, for instance, Standard Bank or other big lenders who are mainly focused on export-related crops. How easy is it to manage that relationship?
No, I think first of all, the Accra is assisting the government. The responsibility belongs to the governments, not to Accra. But we are focusing on small-scale farmers who produce most of the food that the population consumes on this continent. And the government should also make sure that if they were to encourage commercial farming, it is not going to be based on cash crops to the detriment of the of the food crops that the population needs. Take my own country, Ghana here, for example. We are amongst the largest producers of cocoa. We eat very little chocolate, very little